Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 5. We will present grammar material that we take from Hanussen and Palm's book. This material is still related to the previous material, namely the relative clauses. Okay, before we start this presentation, I would like to introduce myself and my two partners. My name is Maulidiyah Hafshah and my student ID number is 193200013. And my two partners are, the first is Salsa Farabilla, the student ID number is 193200012, and the last is Usela Fachma, the student ID number is 193200015. Okay, here we just focusing on discussing the two contents. The first is relative word in integrated and supplementary relative clauses, and the last is fused relatives. Okay, now we come to the first content. This is the relative words in integrated and supplementary relative clauses. Okay, do you know what does it mean by integrated and supplementary relative clause? Integrated, as its name suggests, it serves to restrict the property of the head noun as it is tightly connected to the head noun. Meanwhile, supplementary relative clause, it is just supplement. It is more loosely attached to the head noun, so that's why it is supplementary or just additional. The major relative words in the relative clauses are who, whom, whose, which, when, where, and why. We use the relative word of when, where, and why when we indicate the time, place, and reason respectively. Gender, personal versus non-personal. Okay, the primary gender system in English is indeed based on sex, but not all gender systems in language are, and even in English there is also a secondary system that is based on the contrast between personal and non-personal, and this applies to interrogative and relative pronouns. But in the relative constructions that we are currently considering, the non-personal pronoun is different from the interrogative. Okay, the example of personal. In the interrogative, who did you see? So if we change into the relative, become the person who annoys me most. But in the non-personal, in interrogative one is what did you see? And the relative become the thing which annoys me most. So, who here is used for humans primarily, but sometimes other entities like robots, extraterrestrials, or animals, especially pets. And from this example, we can see the difference between the interrogative and relative in non-personal. If in personal, from the interrogative and relative, we still use the same relative word who, but in the non-personal we use what, and we change into the relative one become which. The next is case, nominative versus accusative. Who is a variable like them. In addition to its nominative form who and its genitive form whose, it also has an accusative form whom. The difference between nominative and accusative is the nominative is required in subject or predicative complement function, and the accusative is normally as the complement of a fronted preposition. For example, the woman to whom he was engaged. And for the other example is, the first is the applicants who we interviewed. This is the nominative in informal, and the second is the applicants whom we interviewed is the accusative informal, while in the applicants that we interviewed is non-WH relative and it is neutral.
Okay guys, now my name is Usela Fachma and my ID number is 193200015. And now I will continue the presentation and I will explain about the fused relative. Okay, now I will explain about the fused relative. Fused relative is a relative clause that does not modify an external noun phrase and instead has a nominal function fused into it. In English grammar, a fused relative is a type of relative clause that is a word group beginning with a WH word that contains the antecedent with it itself. This relative clause are also called a nominal relative clause, a free relative clause, an independent relative clause, or in traditional grammar, a noun clause. So, for example, we have two example. In the first example, in fused relative, we have whoever said that was trying to mislead you. The head of the noun phrase are whoever said that and a subject of the relative clause, and its gender indicate that we are talking about some person. The meaning is thus comparable to that of the non-fused. The non-fused relative is the person who said that was trying to mislead you. So now for the second example. In the second example, we have the original sentence without a fused relative, that is, the thing that he did to me was wrong. Here, the clause that he did to me modified thing. It functions as an adjective. And the example sentence with a fused relative is what he did to me was wrong. Here, one word what stands for the thing and that. What is a fused relative? The clause what he did to me is the subject of was wrong. It has a nominal function, act as the subject of the sentence, and is a fused or nominal relative clause. Okay, for the next material, that is relative word in the fused construction. The major relative words that occur in this construction are as follows. In the first bar, there are who referring to people or when we want to know the person. And the next is whom. Whom is always used when it is preceded by quantifier such as all of, both of, few of, many of, several of. And the next is what. What is used to refer to specific information. And the next is which is used to refer to a thing or an idea. And the next is where refers to the places or location. And the last is when refers to the time or an occasion. And in the second bar, we have whoever. Whoever is a subject pronoun, like I, he, she, they, and who. As a subject pronoun, it refers to the subject or actor in a sentence. The next is whomever. Whomever is an object pronoun, which means you can use it in any place where you could also use me, him, her, them, or whom. As object pronoun, this word refers to the object of a sentence, the person who is the recipient or the target of an action. And the next is whatever. Whatever refers anything or everything, regardless of what and no matter of what. And the next is whichever. Whichever refers the person or thing which, regardless of which and no matter which. And the next is wherever. Wherever refers everywhere, regardless of where and no matter where. And the last is whenever. Whenever refers to every time, at any time and regardless of when and no matter when. And the compound form in the second bar do not occur in the order relative construction and nor in standard English. On the other hand, who, whom, and which occur in the fused construction only under very limited condition.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Salsa Farabilla. I am the last presenter. In this part, I would explain about what is determinative and fused relatives and interrogative content clauses. Okay, what is determinative? You know that the what in the previous example is a pronoun, but what can also occur as a determinative. Let's see the example. What mistakes she made were very minor. In this example, what is determiner and mistakes is head of the NP functioning as subject of were very minor. On the other hand, what mistakes is object of made in the relative clause. And the second example, what accident happened were very stressful. What here is a determiner of accident. An accident here is the head of the NP functioning as subject of were very stressful. On the other hand, what accident is object of happen in the relative clause. And then fused relatives and interrogative content clauses. There is a considerable amount of overlap between fused relatives and interrogative content clauses. I have some examples to compare, which is the sentence of fused relative interrogative content clauses, or sometimes the sentence include both of them. Okay, let's see the examples. The example number 1, I really like what she wrote. And the next, I wonder what she wrote. And the last, what she wrote is unclear. In the first example, I really like what she wrote is fused relative. Why? Because the verb like doesn't designs an interrogative complement. So, what she wrote in the first example is unambiguously a fused relative. And in the second example, I wonder what she wrote. I wonder what she wrote is an interrogative content clause. Because wonder listens an interrogative complement but doesn't normally allow an NPA object. And in the last example, what she wrote is unclear. It is ambiguous. It can be relative or interrogative content clause because the word unclear licenses both of them. For the fused relative interpretation is that which word is unclear. It is probably a report or a letter and anything. But in the interrogative interpretation, what is unclear is the answer to the question, what did she write? The implication is that I'm not sure what it was that she wrote. So, the example include both of them, relative or interrogative content clauses.
Okay, I think that's all the material from our group. Thanks for attention, and if you have any questions, so you can ask in the WhatsApp group. I think enough. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.